This is a copy of some of the notes from the Bible study on Thursday, the 11th of April. And it's based on Hebrews chapter 13, verses 4 to 6, which I'll read now. I'm reading from the ESV translation. Let marriage be held in honour among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous. Keep your life free from the love of money, and be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper, I will not fear. What can man do to me? Research has shown that our actions are influenced by those around us. Our levels of panic when the fire alarm goes off is influenced by those around us and their response. The volume of our laughter is influenced by how much other people laugh at the same joke. The work rate of a new staff member will reflect the work rate of those already doing the job. Our actions are influenced by those around us, and our actions have influence on others. This is perhaps why the author of Hebrews addresses his words about marriage to all. Let marriage be held in honour among all, or by all in other translations. Marriage is to be honoured by the married, by those who are single, by those who are divorced. This is because marriage is given a high degree of honour in the scriptures. It is seen as God's gift. It's used as an analogy of Christ and the church. It's held up as something sacred that is to be protected. Yet our thoughts on marriage and our behaviours will be shaped by the attitudes and views of those around us. The picture Hollywood paints of marriage affects us. Flippant comments about marriage affect us. The reflections of others on their own marriage affect us. For this reason, we all have a role in creating a culture where marriage is honoured. Yes, marriage between two fallen human beings may not, in a fallen world, will not be perfect. But regardless of whether our experience of marriage is positive or negative, or even non-existent, marriage in and of itself is still to be honoured and viewed as a good thing. Maybe you should this principle that our actions and example influences others, and their example and attitudes influence us. This has wider principles. One person's attitude and respect for authorities will influence another person's attitude and respect for those in authority. One person's attitude to one person's morals about which films they don't do and don't watch will have influence on another person's decisions about what films they do and don't watch. The degree that one person pursues or doesn't pursue unity in the life of the church will affect how determinedly or undeterminedly another person seeks unity in the life of the church. One person's attitude to somebody who's a bit different will affect the other people in that church's attitude to that person. That's the first point, and now we're going to move on to point number 2. We've got here a bit of card. Which side is the longest? Is it longest vertically, or is it longest horizontally? Is it longest this way or longest that way? The debate over which side is the longest is decided not subjectively by us saying, well, I think this side is the longest, or I think that side's the longest. The debate is decided via an objective measurement, an objective way that we can tell which side is the longest, which is the longest side is that way, but only by a little bit. In much the same way, the debate over right and wrong, it's not solved subjectively, but objectively. Subjective judgment is when you say, in my opinion, I think that this is right or this is wrong based on how I feel, or this is how I see things. Whereas objective judgment is when you refer to some external standard, a reference point outside of yourself. According to this law or this standard, this is right and this is wrong. In verse 4, we're reminded that right and wrong is not decided by us. It's not decided by us saying, well, in my opinion, I think this is right or wrong based on how I feel. We learn what right and wrong is by referring to a standard, a reference point outside of ourselves. According to God's word, this is right and this is wrong. God is the judge of right and wrong, not us. Then we read in verse 4, let marriage be held in high honour among all, and let the marriage bed be undefiled. For God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous. The Ashley Madison dating website won't judge you if you commit adultery. Its logo is, life is short, have an affair. Your conscience might not judge you if you commit adultery. The human conscience has found a way to excuse and to rationalize every single sin imaginable. Society might not judge you if you have an affair. In some cultures, adultery is looked down on. In others, it is applauded. But these are all subjective opinions. The only objective way to know right and wrong is to refer to an external standard, which for believers is God's word. God alone is the standard of right and wrong. God alone is the one who will judge us. Just imagine two tennis players agree to play a tennis game without the lines. When they hit the ball across the net, everything is up for debate. Was it in? Was it out? Because there are no lines, everything is subjective. Every player sees what they want to see, and so after each shot, a long debate begins. Without God's objective standard of right and wrong, we only see what we want to see. If I want to lie, then I'll try and rationalize to myself why lying is okay. Without God's objective standard, I'll forever be debating right and wrong in my head. This person thinks this, but I think this, but the consensus of society is this. Though actually yesterday society thought the opposite. As soon as you introduce lines onto a tennis court, things become clear and all in or out debates come to an end. Even if from our side of the court we might think differently. As soon as you introduce God's word, we learn the true definition of right and wrong. And note that verse 4 does not simply say, let marriage be held in high honour among all, for God will judge the sexually immoral and adulterous. I.e., God has arbitrarily decided what is right and wrong in relation to sex. No, verse 4 also includes the additional instructions, and let the marriage bed be undefiled. Adultery and sexual immorality are wrong because they contaminate something good. The marriage bed, where a husband and wife demonstrate love, commitment, and unity. These good things are defiled by adultery and sexual immorality. The same applies elsewhere. God's definition of right and wrong is not based on not random, just something that God made up. God's definition of right and wrong is based on preserving what is good and directing us towards what is best. As the author of Psalm 19 writes, the law of the Lord is perfect, refreshing the soul. The statutes of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. The precepts of the Lord are right, giving joy to the heart. The commands of the Lord are radiant, giving light to the eyes. Or in the book of Romans, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you'll be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Now, point number 3. Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have, for he has said. A crucial defense against the love of money is to listen to what God has said. It's important we know what God has said about money and we are convinced that it is right. For money, in a sense, speaks to us and wants us to place confidence in what it tells us. Some examples. When I was young, I got £1 pocket money a week, and every pound coin told me I'd be super happy once I got the £15 needed to buy the PC computer game Half-Life. I bought the new game, only to discover it didn't work on my old computer. Every single pound coin had lied to me. It said I'd be happy once I had this game, but I actually felt miserable. The entire 15 weeks of saving £1 a week had been a waste. So many things in life, like money, speak to us subconsciously. They say to us, if you have this, this will be the result. If you have this, you will this. If I have this, I will feel or experience this. If I win people's approval, then I'll feel good and secure about myself. The more control I have over my life, the less anxious I'll feel. If Santa gives me this for Christmas, I'll never ask for anything else again. If I get this job, I'll actually enjoy work and life will be bliss. A psychologist at the University of Irvine calls this effective forecasting. She writes, effective forecasting is the attempt to predict how we will feel about something in the future. Like if you were to imagine winning the lottery tomorrow, you would think you would feel great. Most people feel fairly confident in their ability to effective forecast. Oddly, when you ask people how they actually feel after these life-changing events, it turns out they often have far less of an impact on our emotions than we expect. This was Solomon's experience, which he records for us in the must-read book of Ecclesiastes. Solomon writes, I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labour, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done, and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. Riches might remove some of your anxiety, but they also might add to your anxiety. Wealth might add value to your life, or rob you of the things that you truly value. Money can take you up in the world, or they can bring about your downfall. In other words, we can never be confident if the things that we love will deliver. In contrast, the author of Hebrews wants us to have confidence in the promises of God's word. Keep your life free from love of money, and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear. What can man do to me? Neither of the quotes used here say anything about money. So how can they help keep us from a love of money, from a love of more? What relevance do they actually have? Well, I'm going to get there in a long-winded way, but just think, how much did you weigh as a baby? 6, 7, 8, 9 pounds? Did that 6, 7, 8, 9 pounds, did it add to the weight of the world? The world weighs roughly 13,170,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000 pounds. That's how much the world weighs. Before you existed, the weight of the world was that much. After you were born, the weight of the world was 13,170,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,000,8, 6, 7, 8 or 9, depending on how much you weighed. Now, it would be true to say that your birth added to the weight of the world. It would also be true to say that your birth added nothing to the weight of the world. Like a fleck of dust on the back of an elephant, its significance is so small in comparison. Now, it would be wrong to say that money doesn't have value, or that it can never add anything to your life. But if you compare what you don't have to what we do have through Christ, the significance of one is far greater than the other. Keep your life free from love of money and be content with what you have. For he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. We might not have everything we want in life, but we do have the most important and significant thing. Be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. The more we realize what we do have, the less we'll be distracted by what we don't. As we read in the book of Revelations, God speaks to his church, I know your afflictions and your poverty, yet you are rich. Now, it would be wrong to say that this type of confidence comes easy. There will be times in your life when we think to ourselves, if only I had this or that, or if only I had this X, Y, or Z, this would be the result. Every voice in our head and outside our head will be convincing us that we'd be forever happy if we had this thing, but we'll be forever lacking something if we don't have it. In order to deal with this tension, we need the same rock-solid confidence as the author of the psalm quoted in verse 6. Verse 6 quotes Psalm 56, or maybe Psalm 118, or both, when it says, be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper, I will not fear. What can man do to me? The Lord is my helper, I will not fear. What can man do to me? Well, the author of Psalm 56 wasn't ignorant to the many significant, terrible, horrific, torturous things that man can do to another man. I'm going to read Psalm 56 in full, and maybe just think of all the things that he knew that a mortal man can do to a person. Psalm 56 in the NIV. Be merciful to me, my God, for my enemies are in hot pursuit. All day long they press their attack. My adversaries pursue me all day long. In their pride many are attacking me. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? All day long they twist my words. All their schemes are for my ruin. They conspire, they lurk, they watch my steps, hoping to take my life. Because of their wickedness, do not let them escape in your anger. God, bring the nations down. Record my misery. List my tears on your scroll. Are they not in your record? Then my enemies will turn back when I call for help. By this I will know that God is with me. In God whose word I praise. In the Lord whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can man do to me? I am under vows to you, my God. I will present my thank offerings to you, for you have delivered me from death, and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before the Lord, before God, in the light of life. What can mortal man do to a person? According to this psalm, mortal man can pursue a person, attack a person, ruin the life that they once had. Mortal man can twist the words of a person, ruin their reputation. Mortal man can scheme against a person, ruin every plan that they have. Mortal man can plot and plan to take the life of a person. The author of Psalm 56 was well aware of what mortal man could do to a person. The author of Hebrews was well aware of what mortal man could do to a person as well. He's written in 2 chapters earlier about Christians in the past, believers in God in the past. He writes that others suffered mocking and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were stoned, they were sawn in two, they were killed with the sword. They went about in skins of sheep and goats, destitute, afflicted, mistreated, of whom the world was not worthy, wandering about in deserts and mountains and in dens and caves of the earth. And yet, both the author of Psalm 56 and the author of Hebrews were both in agreement. We can confidently say, "The Lord is my helper, I will not fear. What can man do to me?" What did the psalmist mean? What can man do to me? Where did they get the confidence from? Both the author of Hebrews and Psalm 56 had confidence in God's word. Notice the repeated confidence in God's word in Psalm 56. In God whose word I trust. In God whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? In God whose word I praise. In the Lord whose word I praise. In God I trust and am not afraid. What can man do to me? Both authors had confidence in God's word, God's promises about the resurrection. Notice the confidence in God's ability to save us from death's clutches and bring his people to an experience of true life. For you have delivered me from death and my feet from stumbling, that I may walk before God in the light of light. Or in Hebrews, that you joyfully accepted the plundering of your property, since you knew that you yourselves had a better possession and an abiding one. Or in Hebrews 11, some were tortured, refusing to accept release, so that they might rise again to a better life. It's ironic that the worst man can do to a Christian, kill him. It's ironic that the worst man can do to a Christian actually results in their gain. Mortal man can take everything from you, yet, through death, take you to everything. This rock-solid confidence in our future can help us in so many ways. A rock-solid confidence about our future, eternal future, can help us with everything we don't have in the here and now. It can help us deal with every thought about what we might have in the here and now. It can help us deal with everything that gets taken from us in this life. We may not have everything in this life that we like: money, riches, possession, reputation, honour. But in the life to come, we will have everything that is worth having.